Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Author Showcase, where we do exactly that. We give some love to our book authors. If you're a blogger or you do video blogging or if you're a publisher, this is the podcast where we show y'all some love. And today we have another great author in the midst. This is DC Gomez. Welcome to the show.
Hi, darling. How are you?
Pretty good. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and tell
I
us a little bit about the book or books that you have written.
absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I am DC Gomez. I am an award-winning USA Today bestselling author. I'm a podcast, a motivational speaker. And I write in multiple genres. So I do a little bit of everything. I do everything from urban fantasy to children's, as well as humorous lit and even devotional. So I play in many, many different genres. I love crossing overs. I enjoyed writing. Very humorous. My characters are very quirky and full of a lot of madness and action. So that kind of gives you an idea where I fall in my role.
Um, so what's your genre? Is it like fiction, nonfiction?
I do both. I have fiction books as well as nonfiction. So my devotionals are nonfictions. So I have a series of that. I have a series of fiction books to include urban fantasy as well as children. So I do a little bit of both.
Okay, so for this particular segment, we will be talking about your fiction books first, and then we'll talk about your nonfiction book.
Oh,
But before we get into that, there's one question I definitely need to ask. Uh, what motivated you to want to write?
I have been a storyteller all my life. I absolutely love creating. I love the process of it. I have an undergraduate in film and television. So I've been writing for a very long time. About 5 years ago, I started doing novels. I started publishing novels. And it's the process of just storytelling. I love creating. I love bringing these worlds together and truly bringing these stories to life and watching people just enjoy the process of it.
So for your nonfiction books, what kind of stories are and characters are you bringing to life?
For my nonfictions or for my fictions, which ones?
Fiction.
Okay. So for my fiction story specifically, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my urban fantasy. So I have a series called The Intern Diaries, and it features a veteran. She's a female veteran out of the military in the US that has moved to a small town in Texas. And the entire premise is, what will happen if death knocked on your door with a job offer? Will you take it? So the story is based on the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So you get a very humorous, dark humor adventures through the cities of Texarkana and also be able to experience what it's like to be introduced to magic. So you learn from a very mundane world and get very into the world of magic. But it's all about her finding herself, her finding her family, her finding where she fits in, and realizing that her tribe might be a little different than everybody else. So when you get to know this character, it is a fun adventure. It's very first person. So you get to meet Isis through her eyes, and you get to see her quirkiness, you get to see her sarcasm and how she really cares for the people she loves. So that's always a lot of fun for me.
What does that character represent a real life person?
Not exactly. She has portions of many people that I know. A lot of her backstory matches my brother's backstory. A lot of what she is people that I have encountered. So she is not based on solely one person. I can be like, yeah, ISIS is representing no, not in that case. She has pieces of different people, but she is not specifically one person I know.
What are some of the things in the book that the book addresses?
One of
Like,
the things you
because one sometimes authors that write a nonfiction book will have things and elements in it that deals with something that has happened or is happening in real life. So would that apply in this case?
if you're looking for the moral background in it, you can find one. It is a bit of a commentary on homelessness. and the people we take for granted. Because one of the things that the elements is it's a little bit of a mystery. There's people being kidnapped, and nobody's looking for them. So it is goes back to the idea of those people who are neglected and like ostracized in our society. They're not being seen. So when you're looking at it, yes, you can find that. You can have the social commentary, but it's not the one that's going to be in your face. Some people see it, some people kind of going, oh, that was fun. And it's up to the actual reader to kind of find the message. But there is a small social commentary on who are the people that we usually take for granted and why do we take for granted.
Yeah, I think all of us can like relate to that. That we have someone in our life presently, or if we had somebody in our life that we have take for granted and now they're gone. Um, do you think that that may be a trigger for someone who experiencing that? Like for example, a couple of months ago, I lost my dad to COVID, and we really never like sat down as father and son, and really wasn't able to spend the time that we wanted to have. So that was a regret. But at the end of towards the end of his life, when I was taking care of him, that was kind of like the moment where we connected. And he was telling me how proud that he was of me, for the things that I have done. I've been involved in community organizing work for over 30 years. And that was something that he could not understand, but at that point, he understood why I do what I do. And he told me he was proud of me. Continue to do what you do. So, in that spirit, I continue to do what I do in memory of him. So, I no longer carry that regret that I didn't get to spend enough time with him. There was an opportunity before he died that I had an opportunity to spend with him. So I kind of, resonate with that. For this
Oh,
particular book, yeah, you want to comment on that?
well, first of all, sending blessings and, a lot of love for your loss and understanding that, this is a very difficult time and grieving doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't just, you move on within a few months. It does take time to that. So I'm sending you lots of love and lots of blessings for that and for your family as you guys transition. When I look at Death's intern, she does work for death. And in this book specifically, you're looking at what does death means in this to these characters. Death is not this evil entity that goes around killing people, but more or less is she's in the business of, she's in the business of moving souls wherever they feel like it. And death believes that it is her responsibility to take care of the souls. So for people that have recently have lost, it can have some triggers. It can definitely have some triggers of seeing themselves and saying, okay, if I think I'm going to heaven, there's this being that's going to walk me through it, that's going to take me by the hand, it's going to get me there. So it's a little bit different than what most people see as a reaper. This being is very, very much is whatever you see death to be is whatever death is going to come in that door. So I usually kind of give it a much more compassionate approach to the transition process than most people honestly looking at it.
And ladies and gentlemen, sometimes, when we have guests, they may, present some like literary jargon. And one of the things that you mentioned was uh, dark humor or
Mhm.
dark comedy. Can you explain to the audience what is meant by dark humor or dark comedy? That's a term that's really been popping up in the last 20 years.
When I'm looking at it is taking dark elements. We're talking about death, we talked about supernatural. I have things like the devil, and taking it from a much more comedy perspective. It doesn't come with the gruesome descriptions of the horror genre. So while my book deals with very genre topics of horror, we're talking about death, you're talking about transitioning, you're talking about zombies and all these things. It doesn't come with a suspenseful part. It doesn't come with a gore. It doesn't come with the details. So you're going to look at some things that are normally very serious in some topics from a much more comedy perspective. They're going to have a light undertone. So it's not going to hit everybody in the same things. It's going to look at that side of you can cry or you can laugh, but it's going to be at taking those specific elements and kind of looking at it from a perspective that it can be funny.
Okay. Okay, great. So, people, so from time to time when we have artists coming here and they, give literary genre, we want to make sure that the audience be able to, know and understand, what you mean by, those specific terms and definitions so they can walk away and say, well, yeah, I, know what she's talking about now, or I know what he's talking about right now. So just wanted to throw that at you. You also mentioned that you do a lot of, so some of your novels are like action novels.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that because I'm an action junkie, so I would love, to, I like anything action, whether it's a book or a movie or a TV series or something like that. So, let's talk about that a little bit.
For a lot of my urban fantasy specifically, they're very action adventures. So there is car chases in these books, or there's going to be fight scenes, or it's going to take you on a journey. So a lot of the things you're going to see is those elements of the action film per se. So my heroine's going from one scene to the other. She's being chased. She's having pursuits. She's being, there is her vehicle got blown up by the witches. So you're going to see a lot of fast-paced scenes coming too throughout the series. So as the series progresses, you are going to be able to find this adventure because it is very focused on those genres of like whether it's a thrill, there is a chase, there's something behind it. There's always a lot of those elements of like we need to fight, we need to move, we need to find things to get the story moving.
Are there any characters in these books that kind of stand out to you?
They're very independent of each other. So it's kind of their, to me, I think the series as a whole is very fun to follow. The more we get into the series, the more characters comes around. But while Isis is the main character, you get to meet the other interns. You get to meet the interns with the other horsemen, and you get to meet Constantine, who happens to be, a talking cat. So you get a lot of these characters that are very in their own skin, and they're kind of fun to go down. So Constantine happens to be a lot of favorites for a lot of people. They really enjoy his sarcasm and his attitude that comes from being a cat and just being around for 5,000 years old. So Constantine's one of those favorites, as well as Death himself or herself, depending how you see it.
It's funny that you mentioned the name Constantine because when I think of Constantine, I think of a Roman emperor in
It's
the fourth
actually
century.
it is the joke that Death names a cat, and it was because in his travel they had met a Roman that was named Constantine, and he thought that would be perfect for you. So yes,
Okay, great. And
yes.
yeah, and I think you mentioned something. Yeah, I think another name, that you mentioned that uh, that we can trace back historically.
Probably Isis. My main character is named after the Egyptian goddess Isis.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, right. And there was also ladies and gentlemen, there was also if you are over the age of, if you're close to 50, then you'll probably remember this live action children's series called Isis back in the mid 70s, as well. And she was this mortal who was given special powers to battle evil, and there's a lot of action sequences in that as well. Just want to throw that in there. um who in the nonfiction books that you have written, what would you say is your target audience?
For the devotionals themselves, is anybody who's looking to heal. These series is called the Dare Collection. So the first book is Dare to Heal, Dare to Believe, Dare to Love, and Dare to Forgive. So these are very more on the self-help category with a very religious connotation. So anybody who's in the process of going through some stuff and they want to transition and they want to heal. So it is open to everybody. I have readers between the ages of literally 20 to 65 that have read the books and have enjoyed it.
Okay. Um, yeah, we was gonna go into the nonfiction side, the devotional books. What was the inspiration behind writing those books?
Those honestly came right out of COVID. As a writer, and especially during a pandemic, we're always looking to see how do we give back? What is it that my talent? Can I give back to my readers? And that was one of those inspirations that came. I was doing a Facebook Live, very much focused on giving motivation and inspiration. And the devotionals became that companionship. Became that thing that people can take physically and work on them, that they can work through their processes. They're both, all three of them are actually 4 weeks long. So you have a week for each kind of stages that you're working through. And you can go back and you can read them in any order depending where you're at. But they're basically designed to hopefully during these times of really hard, energy that we're going through and a lot of transitioning, that gives us something to hope and kind of move forward.
Are any of these devotionals kind of touch on some of the things that you have been through personally in your own life?
A lot of the things that I pull through are based either on my life or things that I have experienced or things that I have seen from my friends to experience. So you get a little bit of, they're very personal, they're very raw, because when you're looking at this transition, you're giving your own take on what this scriptures or what this topic might be. So they are very personal. You are on a journey with me for 4 weeks to kind of find that place again where you want to be and where you want to feel at the end of it.
Sometimes we get artists that come up here that the the writings that they have is based on their own personal testimony. Do you have a personal testimony or a story that you would like to share with the audience?
I don't have a one right now in front of me that I can share. The ones for the devotionals are little bits and glimpses. You get like glimpses of the same things or the glimpses of, you know, forgiveness. And forgiveness is a very dear topic to me because I honestly believe that as individuals, we don't forgive ourselves enough. We might forgive others, but we have a hard time forgiving where we're at and kind of that process of how I got through it and be able to look at myself again and be able to say, yes, I might have done something bad, or I've been through some of these bad things, but I'm not a bad person. I am definitely in a process of healing, in a process of loving, and I deserve to be in these places and I deserve to be loved. So you get a little bit of that.
I think that's the self forgiveness part is. I think a lot of us, go through it. Even myself. I know a lot of people say, well, well, you're a very harsh person, but I am harsher on myself more than I am, of other people. Just like you said, I'm willing to forgive others much more so than I'm willing to forgive myself. And there's a lot of factors, into that. And I think one of the things that we had a guest come on maybe a couple of weeks ago. She talks about having shame and guilt that's still a part of us, and that's one of the reasons why we don't forgive ourselves because we still
Mhm.
carry on that shame and guilt. And she wrote a book on how to deal with that. And I thought that uh, that was unique because she was saying that they're not separate. They come together in a package. A shame guilt is a package. Once start feeling guilty, then you feel shameful about yourself, or and she basically explains, what it is, what the consequences are, what's involved with shame guilt, what are the consequences, if we don't deal with it, and how we actually deal with it so that we're able to forgive ourselves and move on. So, it's just a kind of a little bit of a coincidence, that you mentioned that because and we had a published author, come over here talking about that. So, and that's one of the that's the foundation, one of the main reasons why we're not able to forgive ourselves because of that. So, uh, really appreciate you bringing that piece to the segment. Um, Anything else about your books that you would like to share?
Um, One of the things that I do that I really enjoy is that I encourage everyone to find a brand new author if they have never picked up somebody. Actually, go back and find any indie or any traditional author and just give them a try. One of the things that I do that I enjoy really much a lot is being able to bring you something different, bring you something that will entertain you. So I'm hoping whether you pick up my fiction books or my nonfiction, that you're able to connect and that it resonates, so that you actually enjoy the journey that I'm going to take you, and that I can help you escape into a whole different world for a couple hours a day. So that would be amazing.
So, I can't help but to go back to your character Isis in your action novels. And I'm thinking about Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond,
Mhm.
novels. I'm quite sure that you heard of him. Um, I'm quite sure that that you heard of him. Um,
I have, yes.
so you've been following him.
I'm much more of a Bond fan in the movies than I am the books. I hate to say it, but I do love the character. I love what he has created, and they're it's like extremely exciting books. So yes.
So is there a difference between is there a difference between James and ISIS when it comes to the action genre, whether it's a book or movie or something like that?
Yes. So if anybody's trying to compare them, this is a little different to compare because James Bond is very real time. You're looking at him as a spy, and he's on a mission and he's working on his whole like secret quest to save the kingdom. His missions are very focused on the natural laws. When you're looking at my series, it still has a supernatural part in it. We're looking at magic. We're looking at her being able to talk to the dead, touch the dead, and communicate in this setting. So for people who are looking for straight action without the magic, I'm not the writer, you know what I mean? Because mine comes with a lot of magic into it. If you're looking to experience much more on, if you think of Neil Gaiman's Good Omens, that has the Four Horsemen, that has the piece of magic in it. I'm much more in that category. You can think closer to Sandman of Neil Gaiman than you can James Bond. So while there is action in the series, you're looking more into the magical side, less the real life spy kind of scenarios.
Okay, so can these characters relate to ISIS, uh, the cast of Charm, Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
You can kind of look at it from there. Yes, we do have vampires in the series. We also do have witches in it. So that will be probably what you're looking into it in terms of that category, that there is that magic with a bunch of madness happening in the background. So yeah, that will probably be a little closer than James Bond.
Okay, yeah. Sound like to me that you have like a little unique spin on your character, rather than the traditional characters that we hear about in pop culture. Would you say that's true?
I'll bring you elements of things that people are familiar. You're going to see witches, you're going to see vampires, you're going to see zombies and shifters, which is very popular right now. What you're going to get is a different spin on what the horsemen are doing. In my series, the horsemen are running businesses and they're making money and they're, trying to assimilate into the world while they wait to the apocalypse. So you will get a little bit of both. You get what the pop culture is used to in terms of the supernatural world. So if you watch the show Supernatural, you get a little bit of that in there, but you're also going to get a different spin on what exactly happens behind the scenes while we wait for the apocalypse. What does death do? What does that writer do? And how does it they spend their years waiting for the world to end, kind of thing.
So are these spiritual beings that you're referring to, or they take on human characteristics?
They take much more human characteristics. They're still very magical in essence. While death looks human, pestilence comes in the shape of a female. War is going to be a war general. Famine's going to be a industry guy or girl is a they. They don't believe in genders but feminine. So you get human qualities to some extent with the understanding that they're still powerful, that they're still superhumans, if you want to look at it. They're still beings outside of the scope of what we can understand, but they can kind of look and sound like human.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of a mid-90s series called, Touched by an Angel, where you had, angels that take on human form. And so you had two that were female, and you have one that was male who was referred to as the angel of death. And I think there was a couple of episodes where there was a couple of episodes where, we saw Satan, the devil, in human
Mhm.
form, and I think she was female, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So does it kind of goes along with those lines?
I have not seen that show in years, so it's hard for me to compare it to it. So I can tell you my characters all come in human. The devil does look human. He doesn't have the horns, he doesn't have the tail per se. So you're going to see them all through the eyes of Isis, and they're all very unique in their essence. They're going to be everybody has their own world that they're running, if that makes any sense, or have their own mission going on. So you're going to be able to see what the devil's doing. And in my series, besides trying to seduce souls to hell, he's trying to run a club because what else are you going to do when you have ultimate power? So you have all these different pieces running it, so it's hard for me to compare it because I haven't seen the series in years, but it is a combination of all these supernatural beings are literally intertwined with the human world, while humans cannot tell that they're here. So humans do not know that the devil is there. They're not going to know that this is an angel. So unless you can see the supernatural, you're not going to know they're there. But they're still within the behind those layers.
Oh, right, yeah. And I think that goes into, real life as well. We really not going to know who they are,
Mhm.
even in, in real life. So I could see that, as well. But one of the things I don't like is that, when we talk about these things, it's all like stereotypical. You mentioned yourself, like, when we think of the devil, we think of him having a dressed in red and have horns and have a pitchfork.
It's one of those things that a lot of people have one of those concepts because I have asked a lot of my readers have asked, a lot of people that are looking for the books, what is your vision of what these people are or what these beings are? So it's usually easier for me to say and they're not going to look at the stereotypes. They're not going to look what people have normally heard in a fantasy series. You're not going to get that view. You're going to get these beings walking around in business suits. They're going to be wearing Oscar de la Renta. They could be out of a runway. So it gives you a different perspective. So you're not going to be experiencing what is traditionally or stereotypical. So I like to put them on a very much what if category. And there's still one of those things that it is still fantasy. So I get to create a universe that is very unique to the area and kind of let it. I'm a talking cat, so it's kind of fun to create these worlds that mix and match what the real world is with the supernatural and kind of blend them together.
Okay, so we're coming upon Halloween.
Mhm.
Uh, are you seeing? I mean, well, first of all, how long had this book been in? How long this book been published?
So book one came out in 17. The ending of this series came out in 2020. So about the series itself has been out about 5 to 3 years, 2 years.
We're coming across Halloween. Have you, have a people have a general interest, in the book in a specific time of the year, or it's kind of like spread out? How does?
This one is very spread out because it is a 5 book series. So it doesn't have to be just Halloween. You know what I mean? While it deals with the supernatural and I have witches and zombies, most people can pick it up anytime. So I have readers that pick it up as a summer read, which I always think is kind of fun. I have people that actually take it to the beaches on their vacations because it's very light humor. So they enjoy it that way. It's fun to promote for Halloween because it has those elements in it, but it doesn't have to be read in the season.
Okay. And have you had like any? I'm sure you had like book tours and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Um, Tell us something about some about the reviews that you have gotten from readers.
One of the things a lot of the readers I get is definitely that they're fun and quirky. I think that's usually my best scenario to explain to people that the characters are enjoyable, that you can connect with them, that you can follow along with them. And it comes with a very happy ending. So you are prepared that every book at the ending is going to give you that resolution. I'm like, oh, that was fun. And kind of comes almost like cozy mystery for people who enjoy those books, that it comes full circle. It's going to end with my heroine being victorious and being able to move to the next adventure. So those are usually the reviews that I get that is very, very fun to listen to.
What about your devotional?
One of the best reviews that I've received recently is from a reader that said that this is what they do every day to start their day. So it's always very exciting because as part of the devotionals, it comes with a part for you to meditate yourself. So I'll give you a scripture, I'll give you a little reflection, and then you got some time to reflect yourselves. So I'm always excited when my readers come back and said, thank you. I really enjoyed it, or it's really helped me through this process, and that they do it all the time. So a lot of them have their own personal journal because they don't want to write in the book, so they can do it over and over. So, and they have gone through the whole series. They've done the belief, they have done the forgiveness, they have done the love, and then they start over. So to me, it's one of the most humbling experiences to hear people say, I do this all the time.
So would you say it's like maybe a teaching devotional that someone can, use it and, as an opportunity for teaching?
It's much more focused for them to do it as an individual, but yeah, they could honestly do it as a group if it was something that they enjoyed.
I think you mentioned in your introduction that you was a motivational speaker. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what are some of the things that you talk about?
I'm very blessed that I can pick different topics. So I have been contacted to speak both on writing as well as how to take your own personal story and put it into a book, or how to take something that has hit home that is very dramatic and convert it to something powerful. So a lot of the things that I try to do with my speaking engagements, depending on what the audience is really focused on what the audience needs, is be able to take your personal story and convert it into power and be able to give you healing, be able to take those moments in your life and truly transcend with them and be able to get you to the next level. So I get to be very encouraged to see how people can take the things that they have experienced and put it into a book or story or be able to share with others.
Okay, so without having like the spoiler alerts, can you walk me through a typical? Can you walk me through a you walk me through a typical session, or when you out there speaking?
Those are a little different because they all depend on, there are case by case scenarios. So it's kind of a little different to say, how can I do? So the most recent one that I got finished teaching that was really exciting was being able to teach people how to create a story and taking it for their own personal one. So a lot of the things that I usually start with is taking kind of my books and be able to lay it out and show people, okay, every single one of my book has a piece of me. It has a little bit. My desk intern starts with my military background and transitioning, kind of finding the home. I go a little bit through my humorous lit, which Cat Lady Special, and be able to part of me going through my divorce and how I took that into created this and pulled into this, and going into my children's book, taking Charlie and my concept and idea of wanting to have my nephews be able to find a book that they could relate, that they can find themselves, and then finishing with the devotionals and taking those raw periods of it. And then what we do as we go through the lecture itself is be able to ask people, what do you consider a book to be? What is the kind of things you connect? What do you read? And can you find yourself in those? And then we break down the process of being able to take it. If you're trying to do a children's book that is 800 words, or if you're trying to do a novel. So, and then tying it back together to explain to people that everybody has a story. We all have a story. Some people might have an entire series, some people might have just one book, and be able to tie it together. So, those are some of the things that we kind of work together and be able to get everyone to think about what is your process of healing? What is your process of putting these in the paper and how to get it to the next level?
So is it common for authors to write in multiple genres or just one?
Most recently, you'll be surprised a lot of authors write in multiple genres. They might have different pen names for each series. So if they are very prolific, you might have somebody that if they're doing fantasy, they'll write it under one name. And if they're doing mystery, they'll write under another. So I'm very blessed to have friends that do write in multiple genres, but they tend to have separate names.
I recently did a look at some African American authors in history, and I did ran across a few contemporary artists in my research that people may or may not heard of, and the trend is those authors tend, just an example, though those authors tend to write multiple genres and multiple genres where in the past they kind of stuck to like one one particular genre, and they may jump from either being a published author to being a playwright, but they kind of keep it in the same genre. So we had a different like combination, thing. So it's kind of like no set, pattern. Just kind of wanted to know, what your perspective was. My next question is that yeah, you wanted to comment on that?
Well, back in the day, it was easier to market if you stay within your own genre because people were able to follow you from one book to another. So while you stay with one, it's a little easier. If you become multi-genre, it makes it a little bit more tricky for people to be able to say, okay, do I like this series and this one and switch over? So most traditional authors did tend to stay within one just because it was easier to market. It was easier to connect with the readers in that category.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing now that we're having people writing in multiple genres. Do
Mhm.
you know the reason why the trend has been switched?
Where a lot more writers are becoming independent. So once you take control of your career, you get to decide which genre. So they get to be much more playful. They get to become much more expressive. And they understand that readers will follow authors from one genre to another. Before the consensus was like, if you were only did fantasy, if you switch over, nobody was going to follow. We're seeing that completely change because people fall in love with the writing style, not just the genre. So I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about switching now is that people get to follow what they love, not just that specifically track.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that a lot of the present day authors are being more independent. Um, because I'm an author too. I have some books out as well. Um, they're all nonfiction. They're all nonfiction. I am independent, um, which means that I am pretty much completely in control of what I write, versus going through a traditional publisher. They kind of like have a little bit control over what you can do and what you cannot do, and so you really don't have the freedom to bring your own style and your own creativity. uh am I getting somewhere with that? I mean, that's
Mhm.
what I have seen. I don't know, you may have a different perspective on that, but I mean, that's what I have seen. And my career dates back to 1991, and in 2004 was the first time that I have actually written a book. But my writing career goes back to 1991, so it's over 30 years.
It has been a huge trend and it's very exciting because you get to see artists really creative in what they love to write because now they're writing about the things that they love. So that's kind of really fun to see it as well.
And we're going to get ready to close in a few minutes here. And I just like to say thank you so much for being on today. Certainly, you have a great literary collection, as I can see behind there. So I'm quite sure that you are a big fan, of books. But when it comes to your own writing, what's the best thing that you can say personally about your own writings versus the many books that you have behind it?
In terms of what I enjoy about my books compared to what I read,
Yes.
what I honestly enjoy about my books is being able to take people on those adventures and being able to create worlds that, for the most part, are very here. I'm able to bring characters that kind of look and sound like me. So you get a little bit of the culture behind being Latin America. You get a little bit of multicultures in a lot of my books because that's what I experience. So when I get to see why I enjoy reading many different things, I do anything from leadership to very much devotionals and everything in between. I enjoy reading. One of the things that I like to bring to the table that people might not be aware is the different cultures that we have around us, is being able to introduce you to people that might not look or sound like you that have an amazing adventure that you can connect with.
And what are some of the responses that you're getting from that? Because I know that that we're living in a time where I'm not going to say that it's popular, but it's kind of like there's a lot of uncertainty.
Believe it or not, it's not one of those things that I think I push or I focus on. It's part of the characters. The
Okay.
characters just happen to be, this is who they are. It's not the things that we're going to focus on. You're not going to focus on, by the way, they happen to be Latinos. And that's not the case. You just happen to have a Latino character that's having this experience. Because I think
It's
that's
just
what
not
real life is about.
okay. So it's not being overly it's not being it's not being overly stated or just like really out there.
That's not the case. I'm not in a
Okay.
mission to be overly preachy with my work. What you're going to see is a diverse combination of characters that just happen to all live within the same region. I think that's when I looked at my city and I'm in, Texas, you have a little bit of everything. So when you're looking at the books, that's the flavor that I want. I want people to see themselves as a little bit of everything and be able to seem like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
So would you say that in the literary world that when people write books, it's kind of like I mean, it's not stereotypical. I know, not in modern times, but uh, do you believe that there's a difference between contemporary writing, versus what was going on in the past?
It should there's always going to be a big difference because people are going to write what they see and what they know. So our experiences as we continue to write forth are going to change. They're going to be much more immersed in our climate. They should be much more diverse because there's a lot more experience. People are no longer segregated. You have an opportunity to bring and pull from different areas. So what you're reading back, if you're looking at the 1920s, 1950s, is going to be very different than if you pick up a book that takes place in 2020. It's going to be the same way when we hit 2040. What our experiences are going to be in those 20 years are going to change just because we do as human beings pull from our perspective. So back in the days, people tended to stay within their own little bubbles and they tended to not mix as much and they didn't have the diversity. They didn't have the opportunities to see other cultures. So as we continue to move, it's not even the stereotypical, it's just the bubble that they live. So I'm always excited to see what the future brings as we continue to morph in this world, that everything becomes much more intertwined. People become much more united and they get to see different people from different perspectives.
Yeah, right now I really don't see any books like in they are written like maybe 50 years into the future or maybe 100 years, in the future. I haven't really seen any of those type of books versus back in the 60s and 70s, to where, it's 1950 and they've written a book about, what's going to happen in 1999 or the year 2000.
The works that you're going to see that are taking place in the future are very dystopia, which is kind of the interesting place. You're not seeing like the regular, like, oh, it's going to be homecoming, and that's not the case. A lot of the books you see that are taking place in the future are very much the exploration of the potential destruction of the world. So think of the Hunger Games, that takes place in different planets, or think of those, catastrophe books per se. That's kind of where you have the future of the settings right now. Is almost like the Mad Max. Like you have a whole bunch of those books that takes place in the dystopia. And I think that's just kind of the flavor that we're in right now in terms of that essence. So the future is a little different. You have a lot more space operas, which is, like the Star Wars kind of things. So it's a little different than just, 50 years in the future, you have a romance. That's not what you're going to be seeing as much.
Oh, okay, I get
Yeah.
it. All right. I haven't really been following that, that much. Just
Mhm,
kind of like, studying the general trends,
mhm,
that's going. It seems to be uh there's some things, in the past that have been moved to the future, and then there's like a different spin
mhm,
of writing that is different, in the past where you still have like sprinkles of the past in it. They just, have a new perspective, a new imaginations, and things of that nature. Because you have to, make things fresh in order for people to, continue to follow the authors and following the books and following the characters. You got to have something, different. Otherwise, that authors may lose their audience. And that goes with any time period, whether it's past, or present. We'll probably be dealing with that in the future, as well. But I think what's happening here is that people are becoming more independent writers. I've seen a whole lot of independent writers. I don't see was I have a friend of mine that he wrote really touching story. He's an independent author, but he's like right on top of the bestseller list for Amazon. He's an independent.
mhm. With the ability of Amazon to open a lot of doors, becoming an independent writer, becoming indie is a lot easier. And you do have a lot more control, like you said. So you're seeing that big shift in terms of how people are publishing their works and how they're connecting with their readers. They're definitely taking much more an aggressive approach and saying, I want to control my business. I want to control my art. I want to be able to put it out when I want to put it out. So it's really fun. And a lot of indies are doing amazing, which is even better. It's a good, you know, a testament that we're doing good and that people definitely want to see it.
Do you see your character becoming a movie or a TV series in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I think every writer has that dream. We all want our characters to be translated to the big screen or the small screen and be able to connect. And it's kind of that fun adventure to see how we can do it and how we can get it to people. So, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to get ready to come to a close here. Um, tell everybody how they'll be able to reach you. They have any questions? They want to know more about your books and where can they get your books?
The easiest way to find me is on my website, which is dcgomez-author.com. And that's dcgomez-author.com. You can get links to all my socials from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. You can also find links to my books as well as be able, if you wanted to connect, you can send me a message directly through my website. You can also pick up a copy of The Origins of Constantine directly from my website, and it will get you directly to my newsletter as well. So you have an opportunity to learn a little bit about me, my books, where to find me, and all that fun stuff.
Well, it's definitely a pleasure,
Oh,
meeting you and getting to know you, and just coming on here, giving your distilling your flavor. No two artists are alike. Everyone that we had on here so far in the last 5 years have definitely been unique.
we all come from all different places, bringing the best of us to the table. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's such a pleasure to get to know you and to just to chat with you. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to your listener who's taken the opportunity to also spend this time with us.
Any last words that you would like to mention to the audience?
To the audience, I always would like to tell them that get lost in a book, find any book that you enjoy, find any genre that will make you smile, and just take an opportunity, take a chance. Whether you find a new author, you decide to write yourself, follow your dreams and definitely make sure that you remember that you're meant for greatness.
Any words of encouragement for someone who is already a published author or they have aspirations of becoming a published author?
Find your community. If you're aspiring or if you already are, make sure you find a tribe, find a group of people that are like minded, that are enjoying, they're in the business, because that will keep it motivated. I think one of the things that keeps me very encouraged is that group of authors that I'm friends with, that anytime something happens, I can reach over and said, hey, give me some advice, or what are you working on? And then you can collaborate. So if you don't have a tribe, find a tribe of friends that can connect with and can keep you focused and motivated.
Once again, thank you so much for those words. And we hope that you will support not only this author, but all of our authors that are featured, on here. They need some love too. And
Absolutely.
that will end our segment here of the Author Showcase, the place where we give authors, bloggers, and publishers, some love. That's what we do. We promote them. We give them opportunity to share their story. So you will learn um, the ins and outs of why they do what they do. So that's what we do here, and we hope that each of these individuals that come on here, we hope that you will support them in some form or fashion. I'm Keith Williams, your host for the Author Showcase. We hope that you'll be able to tune with us next week. We have another great artist that will be on here. It's October, so it's October. You may never know who's going to be on here. You may never know what's going on. So we hope that you'll be able to tune in. Again, no two author are alike, and we like it that way. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope that you have a great Saturday, and we'll see you next week.